Hi everyone, it's Kara Wong, and I'm here today with Gina Best, our next leading lady at the Magical Unicorn Project. And I met Gina last October at a breast cancer awareness event that was being hosted for South Asian women because they, as a group, have a smaller percentage of them that actually go and get mammograms. So I was there presenting as the keynote speaker, and Gina was there to speak as well as a breast cancer thriver, because I'm not allowed to say survivor, to share her experiences going through that journey. And what was really interesting about this is I was sitting in the front row and she was talking about how important it is to get a mammogram, and I was feeling very guilty because I was one of these women who was like, oh my God, like I've never got one either, and I'm not even South Asian. So what's my excuse? Anyways, I think it can happen to a lot of people. You get busy in your life, you know, working, dealing with children, caught up in the hustle and bustle of life. So I decided after that event, I went up to Gina and I said, you know what, because of you, I'm gonna go and get my first ever mammogram. So I booked it, I went that following week, and then I didn't see Gina again to the next month, and we were in Niagara Falls for a conference, and the elevator doors opened, and there she was, and I literally, as soon as I saw her, I bounded into the elevator. It was like, Gina, I got a mammogram! And there's a guy in the elevator who's kind of like, who are these weird people, right? But literally, I don't know when I would have ever got one, you know, if it hadn't been for her. So thank you, Gina. I owe you a thank you for that, because it was just one of these things I just never got around to doing.
And I'm so glad you did, because you know what? So many people discount it or whatever. You know what? It really don't. If you're over, in BC, it's over 40. If there's history of breast cancer in your family, you can go before that. Don't ignore it. And people are like, it hurts, it's this, it's that. Just do it.
It didn't hurt.
It's a few minutes, squish some boobs. You're good. But you know what? It could save your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Gina, so tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became a mortgage boss and leading lady in the industry.
Going back, it's actually 16 years. I was working as a licensed assistant in a financial planning firm, and my boss at the time said, hey, do you want to be the mortgage broker for the firm? I was kind of bored. I thought, sure. Then not long after that, I got licensed, wrong company, it wasn't great. I did 2 years there, and my other boss at the time said, you're going to start your own business. And I used to say, no, I'm not. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not. He's like, oh, yes, you are. I quit my job basically 2 years later and started, back then it was called Meridian, which now I am Mortgage Alliance West, and I was one of the original franchises in downtown. So I slowly built the business. I built it literally, I had an office with a phone and nothing. So I built it from zero. Last year I think we funded about 165 million. And I did it by networking. I did it by building relationships, phone calls, and not a lot of realtors, believe it or not. And then about so in my practice, as I built the brokerage, it was really important for me that I'm not the person to come to if you want like a sit-down trading program, not me. I do really believe in coaching, so I had a very strong business coach through my I still do, and I brought that to my broker, so there was a big coaching component inside my business. So about 6 years ago, I thought I was having a nervous breakdown that fall. It was September, October, we had just went through a really bad first 6 months of the quarter. I laid off my long-term assistant, tortured myself over it, and then it got screaming busy, and I was doing it by myself. I went out one night for my friend's birthday, and he talked me into getting the SkyTrain so I could have a few drinks, and I didn't think it was a great idea. And I had a few drinks, and I kind of lost my shit because I was full. I was just done, and I couldn't do, something had to give, and I knew that mortgages, as much as I loved it, was not enough anymore. And because I was involved with Business Networking International for so long, BNI, there was a sister company called the Referral Institute at the time. They're now called Incentive. So I really wanted to do this. So I kind of did a leap of faith. I got the license. Then in December, I applied for a program, and it was called the Authentic Speakers Academy for Leadership, and it was put on by a gentleman named Dov Barrett, who's actually my mentor to this day. I applied for this program really to make my friend go away so he wouldn't come back to the office. And then I had an interview with this man who had this beautiful voice, and they accepted me to the program. I thought, great, starting a new business venture, I need the speaking skills, I need the leadership skills. The authentic part didn't really factor in. Had no idea I was going to be doing 20 years of personal development in 8 months. So not only did I learn amazing speaking skills and all of the stuff that comes with it and leadership skills, basically I was, broken into 6,000 little pieces and then glued back together a completely different person. And it was amazing and terrifying and hard, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. So then I ran both businesses, right? I run my coaching, I have active business coaching practice, and I still do mortgages, and I always will because I'm a business coach. It makes sense. For the next couple years, there were some bumps in the road. My husband and I decided to call our marriage after 20 years, well, 18 years. That August, my best friend got diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And she lasted just over almost 4 years. She just passed away about 6 weeks ago. In all of that craziness, the following year, I went and had my routine mammogram. And it was a Thursday morning. I was working from home. I had a lunch date at the Boathouse in New West. And they called me. So I had my routine mammogram. They called me back for a digital mammogram. I didn't worry about it because the first time I had a mammogram, I went through all the steps because apparently they needed a good baseline. So having the digital mammogram on the Tuesday, they called me Thursday morning and said, yeah, we want you to have a biopsy. And we want you to do it today. And I thought, holy shit. I canceled my lunch plans. Never actually occurred to me to call anybody and tell them that I was doing this. And I drove myself to the hospital. The whole way to the hospital, the only thought I had that repeated over and over in my head was, is this the message that I needed, that what I have to say is important? Went and had my biopsy, lost my shit. It was awful. It was just before, it was a Thursday. The following week was the long weekend. They called me on the Thursday before the long weekend, and I didn't get a hold of them. They didn't leave a message, so I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So Friday morning after the gym, it was July 6th, I crashed the clinic, and they made me come back an hour later. And then the doctor who was the guy who did my ultrasound the very first time I had my mammogram, told me I had breast cancer. So now we're 4 years later. I'm cancer-free, which is amazing. I was one of the lucky ones, believe it or not. I've had 5 surgeries, but I didn't have to have radiation or chemo. So that is a really great thing. I'm really lucky that when I released my breast, or when they took my breast, there was nothing left over, no lymph nodes, no nothing. So I didn't have to have any other treatment. 5 surgeries, it is what it is. I'm cancer-free. Having breast cancer changes everything. It's so big. How you function, you literally put one foot in front of the other. You have good days, you have bad days. There were days that I would come to the office and I'd speak to a client and then cry for an hour. There were days that I cried a lot through Costco. Costco was a big trigger point for me. So it's amazing when you cry at Costco because everybody gets out of your way. I cried a lot at Costco. One of the things that got me through the cancer part was where I work out. So I work out at this amazing place. It was called Twist Vancouver, and it used to be on 6th in Ontario. And what I would do is I worked out 3 days a week with my trainer, but then I'd keep sneakers in my car. So when days were really bad, I would stop on my way home because I didn't want to take it home to my kids. And it was always one trainer, his name was Luke, and I'd go in and he'd nod at me. And he'd slowly move his clients away from where the music was. And he'd go over and flip on really, really heavy metal for me. And I'd take a weighted ball, and I would throw it at the floor until I cried. And then I'd cry it out, and then I'd put the ball away, and I'd leave, and I'd look back, and he'd slowly move his clients back, and he flips the music. Happened all the time. So I got through all of that. After my 4th surgery, which was Labor Day weekend, 2018. I always had, for 3 Labor Day weekends, I had surgery right before Labor Day. It was really hot, and we were having a heat wave, and my amazing plastic surgeon, who's amazing, said to me, you can take your bandages off on the Saturday instead of waiting until I saw her the following week. I had surgery on Tuesday. So Saturday came, and I knew what my boobs were going to look like. Right, so I had one boob lifted twice, because of course I had breast cancer in my little boob, not my big boob. So I knew what my boobs were going to look like. I had a fillable implant. It went to a certain size, and then this surgery, they were taking out the fillable implant and putting in a permanent. I knew what they were going to look like. So that morning, I made sure my ex had the boys, because I have glass doors in my bathroom, because I just needed a bit of privacy. And I took off the bandages. And I didn't know there was certain things lurking in my head, because somewhere in my head, I thought I was going to have boobs like a girly magazine. And I know it's ridiculous when you say it out loud, but I actually thought they were going to be okay. And I took off my bandage and looked in the mirror and thought, oh my fucking God, how am I going to live with this? And it was terrible. It wasn't, my implant, it wasn't big enough. I was super unhappy. I had a lump on my chest. It was awful. And that's when the really awful part kicked in for me. It wasn't the actual cancer part, it was the after. So that was last year, and truthfully, it was the worst year of my life. I cried for days after seeing my boob. My plastic surgeon, of course, was totally thrilled with it because surgically it was great, but I hated it. I couldn't look in the mirror at all. Like, I could barely put my makeup on in the morning. I had to be dressed before I did because I couldn't look at it in the mirror. And then, separated. The idea of dating and getting naked in front of someone was never, ever going to happen. And it went into all parts of my life. In December, I saw my plastic surgeon, and it's interesting because through all of this, I approached the whole thing with humor and, grit and determination. And when I saw her in December, I cried, and that was the first time she's seen me cry, and it completely freaked her out. So she said to me, you know what, if you're not happy with it, we just change it. Just like that. So she put me on the list to have another surgery. And of course, active cancer patients come first. So I figured, truthfully, I knew when it was going to be. It was going to be right before Labor Day, because that was the pattern. And then in the spring, on top of dealing with, I call it the fog. This fog moved in, and every now and then it would lift, and I would feel like me. And then it would come back, and I didn't know what to do. I retreated. I spent a lot of time by myself. Like when the kids would go, I didn't do anything social. I did stuff with the boys, with my boys when I could. I didn't have a lot of tolerance. I got really, really quiet, and that's not me. I made some really, really bad decisions, especially when it comes to money. Like, no one should ever make they say don't ever do anything until a year after your spouse dies. Don't ever do anything until a year after you lose your tit. Give it a year before you make any bad decisions. So, like, money-wise, I made some terrible decisions. I kept working, and I'm really happy to say that all the businesses made it through the year. I'm not 100% sure how, because I wasn't really present. I had an amazing assistant who helped me out, and friends, and that's what got me through it. But it was awful. I mean, now I look back, I was definitely depressed, but it was even more than that. I've been doing a lot of research lately. And the statistics say that 84% of women who get diagnosed with breast cancer have PTSD symptoms. 1 in 4 get diagnosed, but they think it's grossly underdiagnosed, just like PTSD with everything else. I knew PTSD. I saw it firsthand, but you don't know it when you're in it. This dark place that you go into, because, you get the, oh my gosh, you're cancer-free, it's amazing, yay, go live your life. But all of a sudden, you're this completely different person. And when it's breast cancer, if you've had a mastectomy, single or double, you don't know your body anymore. So some women go through it and are amazing. They are not at all attached to their boobs. They're okay not having reconstruction, and they just move forward. And that is absolutely amazing. I'm not one of them. My boobs meant a lot to me. I started losing my boobs when I found exercise. So I used to be quite chesty. So I slowly worked down, and I was happy with what I had, and then this. But for me, my boobs was a really big signal that I was a woman. Because years ago, when my ex and I got married, we tried to have kids, and we couldn't. I did a round of fertility drugs and got pregnant with twins. I lost one at 9 weeks and the second at 18. And truthfully, I never dealt with it. I didn't talk to anybody for a month, and I went back to work. And I carried that grief along with a whole lot of other griefs with me all those years. I don't think for a moment that I caused my breast cancer. Absolutely not. Do I believe I allowed it? Absolutely. And the best way to explain that is I always use the example of that my mentor gave to me was, think about let's use a young, keen new mortgage broker who's got a young family at home. She's hitting the ground running. She's doing really well. She's working 30 hours a week. She still has time with her kids. She still goes to the gym. She does some meal planning. Everything's going really well. Well, you know what? She's doing so well at work, she gets busier, and her 30 hours a week now turns into 37, 40 hours a week. She's not willing to give up the kid time, so what goes? Oh, maybe, going to the gym as much. Oh, meal planning not so much, you're just throwing it together, hoping for the best, or picking up the phone. It gets even busier. She's kicking ass at work. She's so happy with it, but now she's working 50 hours a week. She still has the kid time, but everything else had to go because it's work and kids, and that's what's important to her. 2 months in, she steps on the scale, she's gained 20 pounds. Did she cause it? No. Did she allow it? Yeah. So I do truly believe that because I didn't deal with my grief, and because I had my emotions locked down for so many years, something had to give. And my girlfriend Kim calls it the elephant under the rug. Something had to give. And for me, it was breast cancer. And when you talk to a lot of women who have breast cancer, a lot of women have cancer, high achievers, a lot of them are, take care of everybody in the world, kids, spouse, parents, whatever it is, work a lot, really successful. They're the yes women, yes. That was me. I was the fixer. I was the one people came to for everything, right? My line was, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, right? Like it just kills me. But women, especially women my age, which I'm not going to tell you because I'm 29 in my head, we were wired to, have it all and take care of everybody in our world, but something has to give. So I do believe there's a really big piece there. And when my best friend lost her mom in the fall, and her mom was, again, worked like a horse, super achiever, did lots of volunteer work, raised kids, all of those things, and boom, she had a mammogram. They missed it September. They found out she died in December, right? And it's every time I hear a story like that, it is these women who don't realize that there has to be time for yourself. There has to be, we always talk about, oh, where are you on the priority list? Well, the reality is most women are not on their own priority list. It was a common argument I used to have with my husband. Well, I'm not on the priority list. No, because I didn't put myself there. Right? I didn't do that. And, people talk to me now, and yeah, I have 3 businesses and a passion project and 2 kids and 2 dogs and a new boyfriend. So I'm busy, but you know what? That doesn't mean every morning I don't sit on my deck for half an hour and have my coffee. Every night I do the same. I'm not the person who's going to work 12 hours a day anymore, or if I do have to, the next day I don't work as nearly as much. I don't believe there's balance, but I believe there's harmony. The days you work too much, the next days you don't work as much, right? But I know that I need to go to the gym. I know that I need to get the hell out when I'm full, and I have trigger points that I know now. Like when I used to be a little on the, how do I put this? Well, I used to get cranky, because I don't want to use the word bitchy because I'm taking that word back, but I used to get cranky, and I used to pick fights with people, and I never figure out why. Well, I know why. When I'm depleted, I pick fights with people, right? I don't know, I can't explain it to you, but now it's a signal, right? But it's all of these pieces put together. So coming out of the worst year of my life, I realized that yes, some women have amazing support systems, some women don't. No one can understand what it's like to have breast cancer and have a mastectomy, single or double, unless you've been through it. One point someone said to me, well, it's only, you're not your boob. I'm like, yeah, I realize that. Well, it's only a boob. Would you say it's only an arm to somebody? No offense, they had been with me a long time and I liked them, right? Your body is different as well as you being different, because you have the thoughts of what the hell is going to happen with the kids? How are we going to do this? Am I going to make it through? Again, I was super lucky and I know it. Now, with that said, 5 surgeries, self-employed, didn't have, steady income for a couple years. The aftermath is messy, right? It's really messy, which is what I'm putting together. But I realize in all of this, and I'm not leaving any woman in that spot. Like, no one, my friends kept me, I have a huge, amazing world, but I have two friends specifically that made sure that I was breathing and doing things and moving, not necessarily moving forward, but they just made sure I was still around. I didn't ever have to pretend with them. I didn't have to explain to them. I didn't have to put the face of fucking fine on. Because if you ask someone going through this, most times they'll say to you, yeah, I'm fine. Well, you know what? You're not fine. You're using the word because you don't have no else to do. It's time to say you're shitty. It's time to say you're good, whatever it is. But it's so much about managing everybody else's feelings, because you know what? There's also a huge piece of guilt. You have breast cancer, and it affects everybody around you. And you feel guilty over it. It doesn't make any sense. I get that. But it's all of these pieces put together. And then after, you're here, you're supposed to get back to work, you're supposed to be back to being mom, you're supposed to be that friend, you're supposed to have fun. But you can't, because you're stuck in this fucking fog that never lifts. And I thought, I'm never leaving another person there, ever. Ever. So that's why I created One Boob Down. And it's a life interruption. It is a program that will interrupt where you are, because that's what I needed. I needed a freaking interruption. I needed something that would shake me up and make me do different. Now, again, super lucky, because my mentor, I saw him through all of this, and he was like, I know he's a big part of why I'm okay, but even he didn't get it because he's a guy, you know? And then with breast cancer, it's done, and I'm, again, very lucky in a lot of ways. So I had a mastectomy, they took everything, I had no sign of anything, cancer in my lymph nodes or anything, so I didn't have to have radiation or chemo. So I actually don't worry about it coming back. They took everything, how can it come back? But I'm one of the very few. So most women worry about this, and it's a constant. You know, and then depending on where you are in the journey, if you were like me and it was really early, I had one appointment with the BC Cancer Agency, because I live in Vancouver. It was the Friday before my mastectomy, and what they said to me was, we hope to never see you again. So I don't have an oncologist that follows me up. I don't have anybody I check in with. I was never offered a support group. I was never offered any of those things. And again, super fortunate mine was caught so early, but Jesus, Mary and Joseph, it would have been so fucking different if I had known about, a support group. Oh, if I had, and now, like, I went and had my mammogram last year on the other side, and I thought, I'm just having a mammogram. I had no idea. You know, as soon as I walked through the hospital doors, I cried. I had no idea how traumatic it was going to be, right? Because I didn't have anybody to talk to. So like I said, I'm not leaving any woman there, or men. There's men who have breast cancer, but God, you don't hear about those. I'm not leaving anybody in that space. You know, and I realize that some women get through this and go on and they're really good, and some women aren't. I get that I'm not a fit for everybody either. Like, we're going to laugh, we're going to be totally inappropriate, we're going to make bad jokes, but we're going to do the work, and we're going to allow yourself to feel what you need to feel and to grieve what you need to grieve, because that's the big other part. Women in general, I'm being very, very general with this comment, women don't like grief. They will avoid it at every cost. Right? And grief causes so much damage if you don't deal with that. But the other side of that, if you don't feel the grief, you can't feel the joy. Right? So for years, I didn't feel my grief. I didn't feel my joy either. So a big part of One Boob Down is doing that, is getting through the grief and I have my own little process I worked up. It works for me. I share it. But I'm not leaving anybody there. And you know, the platitudes that you say to people, just check what you're saying, for the love of God. You were lucky. Yeah, I'm allowed to say that, right? You know, it's really hard to say, yeah, I was really lucky, my cancer was caught early and I'm cancer free. But then, 5 surgeries. I had fillable implants every 2 weeks. I went to the doctor. I had a port here, and they put a great big needle in this port and fill it with saline every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks for, 5 months, it was a constant reminder, right? So all of these pieces together, you know, no part of breast cancer is good. No part of, okay, let me rephrase that. The actual breast cancer itself is nothing is good about it. We don't wish this on anybody. If you ask me today, would I change my journey? Yeah, you know what? I really wish I hadn't made some of the decisions I made last year, but overall, no, I wouldn't, because you know what? I need to change the conversation around breast cancer. Everything is focused on research and treatment, which, yes, absolutely. But there's nothing for when it's done, right? You leave the office, oh, yes, you're good. Like, what the hell are you supposed to do? And I remember, I talked to my friend Annie, who's my friend who passed away. Twice she had no signs of cancer from her ovarian cancer. And again, she went through the exact same thing. You have no sign of cancer, you're good, go live your life. My God, what the hell are you supposed to do? For months or years, you've been consumed by this and managing this, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be okay? Like, good God, your normal is not normal anymore because you're not the same person. So, I've changed a lot like if you met me 7 years ago to today, there's a couple very big defining moments. One was the course I did, one was the program I did, and then the other one was Annie getting diagnosed and then getting breast cancer. But it's time, so I'm taking all of it and I'm turning it into a mission, right? Because it's time to change the conversation. It's really nice that, some people have great support groups, which is God. Like if you're watching this and you've been diagnosed with breast cancer, find a support group. First and foremost, talk to people who are going through it, because no one else, people can empathize, but they don't get it. Find a support group, right? Talk to people. Stop worrying about other people. What are other people going to say? How are other people going to feel? Fuck it, right? Like, just stop. The only person you need to worry about is you, and if you got kids, your kids. Because you know what? You need to be around for the kids, unless you don't really like them, and then that's a different story. Different conversation. But you have to, if nothing else, breast cancer is your gift to be completely focused on you to do what you needed to do, period, right? And it's just time that we change the way we talk about things, the way we deal with things. It's time that people realize that it's a fucking trauma, right? Yeah, to be able to say, I had PTSD symptoms or I had PTSD, for me it's really hard because my brother was a soldier. He did frontline stuff that I don't ever want to know about. When you see the first responders, they see and do things that are amazing and terrifying. So, I have breast cancer and now I have PTSD symptoms. Well, guess what? It's a battle too. And it's a battle that you're not prepared to fight. One day you go to the hospital and have your boob squeezed, and the next thing you know, 2 weeks later, you're told that you have breast cancer, and if you don't do anything, it could kill you. And then you have choices of, chemo, radiation, natural, not natural, and you have everybody and their uncle sending you, oh, here, this is how they cure cancer. Like, really, people, stop it. Just stop it. Do not send someone who's been diagnosed an article about curing it. Just let them figure it out. They'll ask if they need it, right? And it's your choice on how you pick and what you pick. But for me, it's all about the after. There's amazing advances in breast cancer, and the survival rate is so much better than it used to be. Even though there are times that it comes back and it's in different ways. But it's about focusing on living your new normal now.
And a question I always like to ask all my lovely ladies is, what is an emotional glass ceiling that you've struggled with in your life?
An emotional glass ceiling I've struggled with? How do I put this? Let's be honest. After I lost the babies, I refer to it as the Great Wall of Gina. So every time I had a feeling, every time something sneaked through, I'd put another brick on the wall so I didn't have to deal with it. I didn't know how, so I just didn't. So you asked me about the emotional glass ceiling. It was myself, and part of it, mostly it was, let's be honest, I self-imposed it. And I locked my feelings down, but it was also what I thought was expected. So I was, at the time I was working in the financial industry, and then I went on to start my own business. But I didn't think I could show the emotions. The big joke when I did the Authentic Speaker Academy for Leadership was I didn't know how to spell vulnerability. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that you could be vulnerable in your workplace, in your life, period. I didn't know. So embracing that, plus that I was playing with the boys. I was the first franchise owner of, back then we were Meridian in Vancouver, and I thought a certain level of she's one of the guys had to be done. So I never showed any of again, I had the feelings of lockdown, so it was really easy because I just went. So that was, it was definitely self-imposed, but it was all about what I thought was expected, and then, like, I remember seeing, women cry along the way and the way the guys reacted, and I thought, there's no way I'm doing that. No way. Like, I wasn't going to be that. My definition of a strong woman got challenged by my mentor, and when I listed off all these things and he repeated them back to me, and I thought, no way, that's horrible, and he said to me, that's what you just said. So I had to jig what I thought a strong woman was, and now one of the first things is vulnerability. Speak your mind. Do what you say you're going to do. Treat others well. It's those pieces. So I think the emotional glass ceiling, truthfully, I think is self-imposed mostly for me.
So I've heard that you have this world according to Gina, and it sounds fascinating. So please elaborate.
So I have this I call it the world according to Gina. So whenever I do a presentation, business or personal, I always do the world according to Gina. And I actually refer to this in my head a lot. I have an edit button, believe it or not, that edits me from saying things forward, but I'm trying to make that go away. But the world according to Gina, here's a couple things I want to say. First of all, I don't know if I believe women can have it all at one time. I do believe women can have successful businesses and be moms and be amazing partners and climb Mount Kilimanjaro if that's what it is. You can do anything you want. I just don't know if you can do them all at the same time. So that's my take on having it all. There's no rule that says you can't be a successful mortgage broker and have another business. You can't be a successful mortgage broker and have a passion project. You can't be a successful business owner and only do that. When I first started Intentional Success, my Gina Best coaching, I had a partner who wanted me to give up mortgages, and I almost did. And then I thought, why? I love certain parts of it, certain parts I hate. I don't like paperwork, but I love it. So you know what? I will always have mortgages. In my coaching practice, I have amazing clients. Some of them are mortgage brokers. I've had a couple of realtors. I have a painter. I have a lady who makes Facebook Messenger bots. I have a florist. I have an interior designer. I have a woman who's just started one of the very first female-led construction companies. I have amazing people. And guess what? I can do that as well. And then I have one boob down. And people say to me, how do you do it all? They all actually go really well together. You know, my mortgage clients know I have the coaching practice. My coaching practice knows I have the mortgage clients. And now everybody knows about one boob down because it's what I'm talking about. So what I really want to say is there are glass ceilings out there. I worked in the financial world for many, many years. And I used to have to say to a broker, up here, not here. Like, I get it. But you know what? You decide what you want. You decide how you're going to do it, and stop playing nice in the sandbox. Just do it. Stop apologizing. Stop making excuses. One of my biggest frustrations right now is just get on with it, for the love of God. Now that I'm not saying be mean, be rude, be obnoxious. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is figure out what you want and do it. You can make excuses forever, but the reality is here's the biggest thing. Life is short.
So thank you, Gina Best, for being with me here today. And thank you, Mortgage Alliance, for your generous sponsorship in making this video possible.
And I want to say something to that because Mortgage Alliance, over my ups and downs the last few years, have been unbelievably supportive. And you know what? When you make a decision about where to work, it's always about the people. So I hope everybody watching this loves the people they work with as much as I do.